And, you know, since democracy is on the ballot, it's a phrase that a lot of people are using to describe this election. And you know who is former Chief of Staff John Kelly wants everybody, voters, potential voters, people who are trying to figure out what they're doing. He wants you to take this literally. So he sat down with the New York Times to talk about who his former boss, you know, looks up to and takes his cues from, and what he really thought of Americans who made the ultimate sacrifice for the country, our country. Take a look.
He basically said to you that those who died for America on the battlefield were losers and suckers, and he said it more than once.
Yes, he never could wrap his arms around why people would serve the country in uniform. What was in it for them? He commented more than once that, you know, that Hitler did some good things too.
What would you say when he said to you that Hitler did a lot of good things?
Well, I tell him that. I said, you know, sir, if you, first of all, you should never say that. But if you knew what Hitler was all about from the beginning to the end, everything he did was in support of his racist, fascist life, philosophy. Well, it certainly falls into the general definition of fascist, for sure.
Mm-hmm. So we're 13 days out. Will his insiders claiming he admired Hitler and wants to be a dictator on, you know, be the October surprise that'll make a difference in this election? Or is this, you know, like, what changed and made you, what line did he cross this time for you that made you come out? What do you think?
I mean, I just can't believe that for 4 years people have been warning about this. This is General John Kelly is somebody who was so highly regarded by everyone in Trump's West Wing. He was seen, even by the most loyal Trump advisors, as a steadying force. And the fact that today Trump's defenders are instead choosing to impugn a four-star general to defend a politician, I think shows that there's a cravenness and an unwillingness to ever stand up for what's right. But we've never actually been in this moment in history before where so many former senior military officials who directly served under Donald Trump and senior officials like myself are warning about his character, his infidelity to the Constitution, how he views our military. And I want to shake people and be like, why are you not believing us? How many more four-star generals need to tell you the truth about who this man is? He is so deeply dangerous. I'm hoping it breaks through, but I'm never going to lose hope. I'm not going to, but how many more people do you need to hear from? This is a man who he's a Gold Star father. He lost his son in combat after himself serving in combat for decades.
Well, there's a disconnect here because we try to wonder why Trump admires dictators, and we often kind of prognosticate that it's a strength. He wants someone that has all the power, that's in charge. And right now he's pandering that same idea to men, because right now he's hunting the male vote, and he's up on that vote right now. But there's something so crazy about that, because the strongest among us are our military. Mm-hmm. Not just our military, as you said, the four-star generals. These are career military that literally, if you watched A Few Good Men, they say unit, corps, God. God's third, guys. God, family. Like, these are people that have trained in that obedient way. They're not political. And he not only, they've come out and spoken about it, he fired many of them. Mm-hmm. And when those are the people in the room telling you something is so wrong, Trump is the sign of weakness. He cannot laugh at himself. Anybody that critiques him, he has nothing to say. He never served. He's never done manual labor. I actually never fact-checked that, but that is a man that speaks about people who work in a way that he's absolutely never lifted things with his own hands. He's never done anything.
Don't forget the bone spurs.
Well, the bone spurs. But I think that's what... I think there's a disconnect between the men. And for those men that... I was listening to a podcast this morning that said a lot of these young men look to him because they think they're going to help on the economy. I just want to give you a quick little 101 lesson here. It's corporate greed that put you where you are today. It's corporate greed that separated the haves and have-nots. That is not, we have to have a minimum wage with the government because the companies would pay you as little as possible. That's why your jobs go across to other countries. So I think people need to recognize if they're suffering right now, and especially men, it is not, the government will be your one chance right now to hopefully raise those minimum wages. The Democrats are the party of the working
The Democrats
people.
also are the ones that have the superior economy. Every time the Democrats come in, they have to fix the economy, the bad economy the Republicans left. For some reason, people don't seem to get that. Am I right or wrong?
No, you're
Republican?
absolutely right. I could argue that, but I want Donald Trump to lose, and I don't feel like today's the day to have the economy argument.
This is the kind of thing that I don't even know what to say anymore. If people still follow this fascist pig, then I don't know what else to say. I really don't. It's like, how many times do we have to hear him say that referring to immigrants as animals? Yeah. And Hitler called cleansing Germany of all those parasites, referring to immigrants, and he called Jews lice. And this guy, Trump, calls people vermin. It's the same language that Hitler used, okay? How many times do we have to hear him say that John McCain was not a hero because he was captured, or that people who serve in the United States military, my father, my uncles, World War II. How many of us have relatives who served in World War II to preserve democracy in this country? I don't want to hear from these people anymore because they're just either ignorant or willfully ignorant at this point. It's absolutely crossed the line for me now.
I think that's where the framing is, and I think you've really hit the note. People hear these terms, Marxists and fascists, and things like that, strongmen thrown around, and I don't think, unfortunately, that they really do understand the difference between a fascist government and a democratic government, right? Abe Lincoln said it in the Gettysburg Address. Our government, this democracy, which is a very young democracy, it's only about 250 years old, the government is for the people, right? By the people, of the people. And it's about freedom to love who you want to love, freedom of religion, freedom of speech, freedom of association, freedom to protest. And it's the exact opposite of fascism. What John Kelly did during this interview, which I thought was the most important thing he did, was he read aloud a definition of fascism, and I want to do that.
Last week.
He said a far right, but I think it's important to hear from a four-star general
More
also
important than me reading it? How dare you?
But he said it's a far-right authoritarian and ultra-nationalist political ideology, a movement characterized by a dictatorial leader, centralized autocracy, militarism, forcible suppression of opposition, and belief in a natural social hierarchy. He believes not for the good of the people. No. He doesn't believe in inclusiveness. He believes that some people are better than other
some people are
and
vermin.
He is above the law.
Yeah.
And that's
By the way,
problem.
I don't know if Trump knows this, but Hitler had an undescended testicle. Maybe he should look into that.
The facts that you
He's
have.
obsessed with the genitalia. This
Can
guy.
I mention one thing? Because I constantly hear from Republicans who are still defending Trump. Alyssa's a turncoat. She's just saying this for access or to be embraced by liberals, whatever it is. I would have loved nothing more than for Donald Trump to actually have turned out to be a Reagan-esque figure who believed in the Constitution, upheld the rule of law, didn't try to steal an election, didn't praise Nazis, didn't denigrate the military. I wish that was the case. I wish I could be proud of the Republican candidate for president.
That ship
like
is
I
sailed.
would, doesn't take that much courage to admit maybe we should listen to the four-star general over the politician and con man.
It does take a lot to admit that you are wrong.
Yeah.
But when you discover that you have been wrong, you make the change and you go towards a better end. None of this is surprising. This is, we have been getting this information for the last 3.5 years.
That's right.
It's there. So I don't believe that men don't know what they're looking at. I don't believe it, And if you're curious, if you're not sure, if you think we're BSing you, look it up. The information, this is the beauty of all of this. Because this man, he's never met a recorder he didn't like or a television thing that he didn't like. So all of his stuff is there for the listening and the seeing. Because, people like to say, well, he's just fooling around. No, he's not. He's not fooling around. And he is crude. Now, I said last week that, 20, 30 years ago, I was the crudest person I knew. Now I've changed my mind.
He is. By the way, this late professor, William Kelly, a marketing professor at Wharton for 31 years, this guy was a professor, he said that Donald Trump was the dumbest GD student I ever had. And he said it over and over again to whoever would listen to it.
Yes.
To it.
Well, his own niece says he's not a smart person.
He's a marketer and a con man.
That he's not a smart person. Oh, but we have a legal note. In response to John Kelly's interview with the New York Times, the Trump campaign called the stories fabricated, adding that Trump has always honored the service and sacrifice of all of our military men and women.
Don't. You're not supposed to.
I know
react
I'm
to
not
this.
supposed
Yeah.
to. Look it up.
Look it up.
The information is there.
You know,
out
that's
out of the man's mouth.
I think Kamala Harris should use that. Look it up. Won't go back and look it up.
Yeah. Well, we will go back and look it up, but we won't
Okay,
go
do
back in
both.
other ways.
Go back.